All right, thank you and welcome to our session today. This is an interactive Ask Me Anything with Bryan D'Souza. He is a 2011 Thunderbird alum, and in this session, Bryan will discuss the effects of the global pandemic in hiring and ways to stay on fire in the midst of a freeze, and will provide you the opportunity to ask questions about that. I'm also going to share with you a little bit longer introduction about Bryan, so that way you can get some ideas about questions that you might want to ask him. So with that, Bryan is a senior product marketing manager for Microsoft Azure Data and AI based in Seattle, Washington. In his role, Bryan defines and develops new opportunities and executes product strategies via inbound and outbound marketing, positioning frameworks, GTM motions, social campaigns, product development, UX designs, monetization, and research. Bryan earned his MBA from the Thunderbird School of Global Management with majors in strategy, marketing, and international business. Bryan's experiences in business school involved working with multicultural teams, dissecting diverse business case studies, and attending a study module in Germany. During his time in business school, he also interned with BP, a major oil and gas company, and implemented a new GTM strategy for their downstream lubricants business, Castrol. I will now turn it over to Bryan.
Thanks for that, Mackenzie. Nice to see everyone here. I appreciate the introduction as well. A little bit other than the usual flow of things in terms of what I do. I've been at Microsoft a little over 7.5 years, and it's been an absolute joy and pleasure being in this company. It's you start to do different things at different times in your career, and it gives you an opportunity to really show how focused the company and then other big tech companies as well can get in terms of personal development and professional development, especially in these times. So I'm happy to be speaking to you about hiring and how that is taking shape today. Most of my comments are my own, and if not all of them actually. And what I am sharing is based on what I can see through my own network of working at Microsoft, and also with having been part of the big tech community now for quite some time. So there is, it's no surprise that yes, the pandemic has impacted the economy and potentially will continue impacting the economy and in many ways. The ability for companies to keep focus on their strategic goals and initiatives, those that they have been planning and those that are already in play, has been and will continue being stretched, especially in these times. And so whenever we think about an investment in a specific area, that usually corresponds to hiring. So when we think about hiring, especially in big tech, for the most of it, we've always considered big tech to be quite insulated from industrial and economic cycles. It has seen great growth in the past, and it continues to see continuing growth, especially with the growth of virtual conferences, virtual events and meetings and what have you, like these ones here. And so the ability for big tech to support the changing lifestyle of millions of people around the world and to support them in achieving their goals and objectives, individuals as well as large corporations, continues to be a growing focus today. The way my specific role has changed, so as Mackenzie said, I'm a senior product marketing manager with the Azure Data and AI team, what we now call as Azure Data and Edge team. Is that we are in the business of lighting up scenarios for companies to take their businesses to the cloud, stay on the cloud, reach customers, reach other geographies, all from the the comfort of the PC. And so cloud has been seeing, continues to see strong focus both within tech and also non-tech companies. One can even argue that companies that have been historically resistant to the cloud have also started to look at the cloud, even if it is through hybrid motions. So that's something that I'm working on actually right now, which is our hybrid offering as part of Microsoft Azure, which was announced last year, and more to come this year. So that's really the background of what the industry has been seeing so far. And again, coming back to the current job market, there are, even though hiring may have slowed down and there have been hiring freezes intermittently, what I am happy to see is that the last crisis that we saw, the financial crisis in 2008, we saw similar hiring freezes and layoffs and whatnot. But the ability for the economy to get back to normal and for it to start seeing hiring pick up again took a little bit of time. But as what I'm seeing today, and I guess this is a silver lining, is that because the economy has taken a hit due to something other than a financial situation or more like a capitalist-driven situation, and it's something that's totally out of everyone's control, is that we are seeing a lot of companies band together and the communities band together to ensure that whatever and whenever we can actually recover from this economic crisis, we can do that pretty quickly. So the way that translates into the job market is that lead time, that delay you would think of the hiring starting to ramp back up again is actually a lot shorter. And it is definitely not one size fits all. And what that means is that we don't see large companies take umbrella policies about hiring. And it's not like Microsoft is saying all up anywhere in Microsoft we have a hiring freeze now, or Facebook or Google or Amazon are saying. It's really on a case-by-case basis, and it's really dependent on what the specific department, or the specific focus area of that team is in terms of the fiscal year, and especially in terms of going into FY21. Again, we are blessed to be in an industry where, as I said before, seems insulated, and we have seen strong performance at Microsoft in itself with regards to our quarterly earnings as well as our product adoption and usage. So we're happy to see that our customers are doubling down on the cloud, and this is the best time to do that because everyone is now operating, if not close to operating, on the cloud. So so I would take any insight which seems to generalize the job market with a pinch of salt, because there is no generalization in the job market today. It depends on the company. It depends on the space. It depends on what focus in that company that you are looking to pursue, and what is their strategic goals and objectives, how they have been performing, and what their plans are for going into FY21. So that's really my big meta point here for the session. And in terms of segueing into like, how do you really find out more about, okay, which department, what space, which function is doing well or not? It really comes down to networking. And I know in past sessions, I have spoken a lot about how networking can help you help put yourself into in the shoes of the people who are actually working in those roles and functions, and get an idea and understanding about, if number one, would you enjoy that day in the life of that person, yes or no, and maybe, and let that be a way to give you an indicator if that is a function or a career path you want to choose. But networking in today's times also help answer the questions I raised before, which is, around the health of the product, health of the space, health of the industry, company, and so on. I've spoken with many people, and whenever we hire someone, we get these welcome emails from their managers, and I haven't seen any slowdown in that. I've seen a lot of MBA hires, those who have interned with us from good schools, and those who continue to be on a rotation with us, and those who finished their rotations and have now picked our team as a full-time opportunity. There hasn't been any slowdown in that, and it just goes to show that it really depends on the team you're talking to. So, going back to the networking piece, obviously we have LinkedIn, and there are because of the lack of any in-person networking events these days, that's really your best choice. But the ability to first understand, what is the function that you're looking to get into. There are some pretty natural functions that are quite in-person specific. So, randomly on the top of my head, like if you think about being a director of movies, right? I mean, unless you have a plan to do that virtually, you would probably have to work with other people in person, and that might be hampered, right? So it's important to first understand the function you work in, or that you're pursuing, and understand whether is that a function that I believe can be successful virtually. And that is on the candidate really to decide that for themselves, because you can ask that question, you should ask that question to people you network with, but it shows that you've done some homework in terms of what are you capable of when you ask that type of a question. In addition to that, reaching out to people and once you understand your function, then reaching out to people in that function is important. But before you hit that step, you need to understand what industry is it that you're actually looking to get into. And I'm in the big tech industry, but this I feel applies to any industry. Do some research on the industry and understand what the impact of the pandemic has been on that industry. It can help provide insight into if at all you feel like there is enough stability in that industry that you want to take a gamble and go for it or not. And either way is fine. It's just a matter of having the foresight into it, if you may. With regards to big tech, I will say that, yes, we are actually using what we sell now in a big way, right? Because we sell Microsoft Teams, and so now we're selling Teams. We sell we sell the cloud footprint to build e-commerce platforms, websites, databases, AI and machine learning based products, and so on. So we are using all our products. And so, when people ask me like how the work from home situation has affected my productivity, I feel like it hasn't. I feel blessed that I was able to transition really well. And in fact, I actually think I've been a little bit more productive because I've been able to prioritize with people who have also the same now one channel kind of way of working. So it has helped quite a bit in that context. So doing research in the industry and understanding whether the virtual work scene is actually something that is being promoted and not just dealt with. And there's a very key difference between the two. Because if you feel like the industry is struggling and they're trying to make ends meet and drive value with the whole virtual situation, that people are just waiting to go back to normal, that can raise a red flag, because nobody knows what back to normal is, and I don't think back to normal really exists anymore. So if that industry comes to terms with the fact that, well, virtual is it, and they don't find a way to, or can't find a way to keep people being productive that way, then you start looking at more layoffs and you start looking at automation and other such things. So it is super important to understand if that industry is worth it. And you can apply this to anything, right? Like look at the airlines industry, that's what's happening there. Look at, I give you the entertainment industry as one. Netflix is a little bit of a different story there, but the movies and entertainment business is one. You can think about, the food industry is another one as well. So just think about, like, if you're looking to get into industry with the function you're aiming, how does that apply to a virtual set? And try to avoid the industries which, as I said before, would is just hoping for things to go back to normal and are hiring based on that. That's very dangerous. So once you understand the industry, again, that's when you start looking at networking. You start looking for people who match the industry and match the function, and basically testing your assumptions. Anyone is willing to talk to you, or most people would be willing to talk to you to help provide clarity and insight into what your assumptions are. But you need to do the research in order to build the assumptions. Otherwise, you're going in with like a kind of like an open-ended thing, which in my opinion doesn't really end up being very productive for either parties. So when you network, test your assumptions, ask those questions, talk about hiring freezes, talk about don't ask questions like, hey, is your company on a hiring freeze? As I said, it really depends. Like, ask questions more specific to that person, because if you were to ask me, is Microsoft on a hiring freeze, my answer would be, I don't know. I know my team is not, but so that's the kind of questions you want to ask with the person specific to that function. That's the reason you reached out to them. Also, being able to ask questions around the kind of skill sets that are being inquired for right now. So in big tech, I will say for the most part, skill sets that have been in demand haven't really changed. You still need to, from my perspective as a product marketing manager, I need to still be able to have strategic skills, technical skills, presentation skills, leadership skills. Like, these are things that, pandemic, no pandemic, yeah, sure. But some functions and some industries might now have kind of like refined skills to meet the needs of the virtual scene. And so ask those questions. And if you do hear, skills that you don't have, then now you have a good to go and start building those skills to get yourself competitive and keep yourself competitive in this context. I can say from a big tech standpoint, no new skill really comes to mind other than being able to manage the soft skill, which is manage burnout, manage your time, manage how you manage your stakeholders in a new way now. So those are more like the soft skills aspect, but technical skills like being able to manage a DevOps flow or build a go-to-market plan, manage a social campaign, and manage a product lifecycle. Things like that really haven't changed as much. I will say though that time management is a whole new ballgame in this industry, and so when we hire and when we ask questions in interviews, that is something which we gauge is how are you able to manage stress? How are you able to manage stakeholders? How are you able to prioritize and be productive in a virtual format? And so be prepared to showcase those qualities even in your networking sessions, and if provided the opportunity to interview, then be able to be prepared to bring those qualities as well. All on-site interviews these days, like, so typically in big tech, you have the initial recruiter screen. If he or she thinks you're in good position, then you move on to the hiring manager screen. If he or she thinks you're in a good position, then you move on to the virtual loop, which used to be on-site, but now they are virtual. So that's literally like back-to-back, virtual meetings, which basically is part of the ensemble now. So interviewing has also gone online in that context, and so Microsoft, we provide direction in terms of how you can be productive in a virtual onset too. We provide tips and tricks if it's a coding interview or if it's a interview where you need to answer a case study question. Then how do you use a whiteboard? So we have a whiteboard tool that's embedded in Teams that helps with that. We also encourage people to just draw on paper and show it on the screen, things like that. Yeah, so different companies have different tools. Google does Google Meet. Facebook has Blue Jeans. Microsoft has Microsoft Teams. I think Amazon has Amazon Chime. So everyone has their own thing. But just be comfortable with being able to convey ideas and messages via virtual set. Reading body language, you do your best with everything in this half, right? So you can't really read body language as much. But then for me, to be honest, like I think it's a blessing because a lot of times people get thrown off by body language, and you don't. There's nothing to get thrown off about body language. You don't need to read too much into people. Just do your best, answer the right questions the right way, convey your thought process, and so that helps. And by the way, like even in interviews, there's a lot of grace given to, oh, can you hear me? Can't you hear me? There's this thing called virtual call bingo. It's all over the internet where it's like, can you hear me? Can't you hear me? Am I coming through clear? Oh, my call dropped. Things like that. Like you just keep going through a bingo, and if you hit bingo, you go like bingo. So there's a lot of grace for that. So again, there's no need to add stress, even in networking calls, by the way. In the past, it would be a little weird when you're doing a networking call with someone in your city and asking for a video conference. Now, not so much. It's not weird at all to ask for a video call. If anything, any initial networking call or like just an informational is assumed that it's going to be on video unless otherwise. But just don't take offense if someone is not on video. Doesn't mean they're not listening to you. It just means like they've got other rooms messy or whatever. But yes, so there's a lot of grace for that as well. Oh, sorry, I went 3 minutes over. But yeah, I'll just wrap up by saying that the job market on the big tech side, it never stops. It never sleeps, and we are all blessed to be in such an industry. It is important to understand that the space and the function you relate to and what you hear about it does not apply to everywhere in that industry. So take that with a pinch of salt. And networking now should be fairly easy. People aren't getting stuck in commutes and whatnot. So you can be able to you should be able to reach out to a lot of folks online, have informationals with them. I do it all the time, by the way. I don't care if I'm working at Microsoft or anything. Like I just love meeting people and learning about what people are up to. So that's I feel it's become easier. And if you feel it's not, you should think about what makes it uncomfortable for you and work on it. So yeah, I will just leave it at that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Just to remind everybody, you guys are on mute, but feel free to unmute yourself for our Q&A section, or feel free to add your questions into the chat box. We will be monitoring them and reading them aloud as they come in, or when the pause prompts it. So.
Hello, Bryan. Thank you very much for your presentation. That was very insightful, and I really appreciate it. My name is Paul, and I recently graduated from Thunderbird, and I'm curious about a little bit more insight into what it's like for you for a day in the life of Bryan, and in particular, how do you personally manage stress and stakeholders and prioritizing things?
Yeah, it's a good question, Paul. Let me caveat this by like everyone's got their own secret sauce, all right? So it's not a prescription or anything. So for me, I guard my time very closely. Like, this is important to me. So I'm happy to be speaking to you guys. I feel, I never forget the day I graduated from Thunderbird, and I was in a similar situation of job search and all that. And I think nobody should ever forget that. You should always try to do to help. But anyways, so I guard my time ruthlessly. And what that means is if I have to work on on a strategy doc or a feature spec, or do or do like a GTM review or something, like do some like personal, like, professional work without a meeting, I block my calendar. I block like, okay, I think that's going to take 3 hours time. So I block 3 hours. And even if meetings come, like, I just decline, like, or people don't block because they assume I have a meeting. So sometimes if I have to really go heads down, I just block it off as like I'm out of the office on Outlook. So you need to be unapologetic when it comes to blocking time. You don't need to feel like, some people I think that your value is directly proportional to the number of meetings you attend, which I think is absurd. If you have too many meetings going on, I think as a leader, you've done a pathetic job of delegating. And a lot of like good leaders think that way. So that's one way. I block off my calendar for times I need to think. I block off my calendar for times I need to take a break. Now that I work from home, like whenever I have a break, I like, get out, meet with the family, take a little break, come back, have lunch with the family, come back, things like that. So that's one. Secondly, because I work from home, my hours haven't changed. It doesn't mean that now I work 9 to 9. It's I still kind of lock out at 5 p.m. I sometimes have a problem with my phone, in the sense that I check email on my phone. Some people have gone so far as to remove their work accounts from their phone. So for like, I think to answer your question, Paul, like it really depends on what causes a person stress. For me, what would cause me stress is when I don't feel like, when I feel like I'm just going from meetings to meetings and I'm not getting work done, that causes me stress, but I don't feel like I'm getting something done. So I manage it by creating time for myself to get stuff done. Other people, there are other things that stress them out. Like for some other folks, like for other friends of mine, like they sometimes need to have a prep, like a little bit of a prep time before every meeting, so they know what they're getting into. I really don't care for that. I get into meetings, and by God's grace, I actually do a fair enough job of changing hats pretty quickly. But again, so if you think that that's something that drives stress for you, then block out time before your meetings. So it all comes down to your calendar and how sacrosanct do you want to keep it. Don't let people walk all over your calendar. Be fearless to say no. I've got something else going on. Don't feel like you have to explain why you can't make a meeting. And I think people do a really good job of that in big tech, where they say, have a personal appointment, or I've got to take care of a priority or something of that sort. So yeah, I mean that's what works for me so far. I'm not saying I think I have it figured out, but it's helping so far. Yes.
Great, thank you very much.
Sure.
Hi, Brian. My name is Samantha.
Hey, Samantha.
Hi. So I just have a question for you. I have applied to Microsoft many times, although I haven't heard back. I've even tried internal references. So I just want to know, how can I get recognized by them and get on their board of people who they are interviewing?
Yeah. What do you do, and what do you interview for? Or looking to interview for?
Inside sales and product management. I've been applying to.
Okay. Is your background, are you in the business background, or what do you?
Yeah, so I have a background in finance, as well as I have a startup, which is for technology. We aggregate records based on time, location, and description using natural language processing, which I'm doing right now.
Okay.
So I know Python and a couple of the other languages that I'm working on.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the interview process. So typically, what I always tell folks is that your resume should, and I'm not saying you're not doing this, Samantha, I'm just giving you like the overall, but like your resume should match the job description. So
Yes.
I'm not just saying buzzwords, like sure, that helps with like, finding the right, finding the right role and finding the right resume to match the role and all that.
Mm-hmm.
All that is good and dandy. But your resume should match the role. If that is good, great, submit your application. But I think in today's day and age, it's super important to attach an application with a referral, because and ideally a referral from someone in that function,
Okay.
So because when you apply to Microsoft on the career side, yes, people do get jobs from that.
Yeah.
Like it's not like people don't and it goes into a trash can. No, that's not the case. People do like get careers with that. But to kind of like help you like stand apart when you apply, what happens on our end when we refer people who we want, there's a referral system that we upload your resume and we actually attach. And this I don't think this happens with Facebook or Google, because for them it's a general system. But for us, we actually attach the job position you've applied to as part of the referral process. So immediately, the recruiter knows that you're a referral, and so you're already starting to stand out. Then what really gets you to stand out is when the person you've networked with and who's referred you drops your resume into the hands of the hiring managers as such. And we can see like the hiring managers on the back end, like of every role out there. So, I've done this before for others in the PMM, on the PMM side, like, hey, I know the hiring manager, you've been referred, you've applied, your application comes with a tag, and I sent a note to the hiring manager. It kind of like, really brings it on. And like, hiring managers are really open to that. They're like, yeah, hey, thanks for the referral. I'll keep a lookout for this resume when I get the entire bunch. So things like that really help you stand out.
Okay.
What I would recommend for you is, again, if that is something you want to do, and you're happy with the function, you want to get into Microsoft, check out LinkedIn and find people who are doing what you're looking to do, and have a chat with them, talk to them, understand more, and talk to them not with a goal of just getting the referral, but talk to them with a view of like, is this really something I want to do? Like what is your a very good question to ask typically is, what's the best day you've had? What's the worst day you've had? Like, and see if the best day is actually your worst day, and things like that. So that would be my recommendation. And again, it's nothing new for the pandemic. It's just like, this is something that, like, regardless of pandemic or not, you should be doing. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think maybe where I was going wrong was not reaching out to an individual that's specifically in that department. I'm definitely going to utilize that instead of just using my personal connection, using someone in that specific department. So thank you for your advice. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Hello, Brian. My name is Raj. Thanks for all your inputs so far. My question is, what transferable skills that you would look for in a candidate who's looking to transition their role into product marketing?
It depends what you're transitioning from.
I come from a legal background. I work in three companies so far: CSE, Infosys, ARM. My last job was with ARM. So I'm looking to transition into product marketing. So I'm interested to know, as a hiring manager, what kind of transferable skill set that you look for, if I have to apply for similar roles.
Yeah, Raj. So, so the life of a product marketer, the success of a product marketer is typically two-pronged. One, being able to be technical and get deep in being technical. And I'm not saying you need to know coding and programming and you'll be doing code reviews or you need to have a CS degree, anything of that sort. I'm saying that when you get into a room with engineers and they they say like, okay, these are the things we're doing, like being able to understand that is super important. So the ability to learn technical concepts well is important. And for that, you need to have an interest in it. So that's just natural. The second piece is the business side. So when I say business, I mean, if you have been in a role, specific to your question about transferable skills, if you have been in a role that was customer facing, that's transferable, because you need to understand the outside and need to understand how customers think, bring that research in and things like that is super important. So if you've been in a customer facing role, great. If you have been in a in a content role, and what I mean by that is content development, like have you been building collateral, like assets to convey a message of some sort. I don't know much about the legal side, but like if you've been working, if you've built documents that convey certain ideas or certain messages, or you've had to do that for your executive teams or something of that sort, that's a transferable skill, because in product marketing, you build, a lot of content where you go on road shows and then you talk about the product and you talk about why it's valuable and things like that. Another transferable skill could be sales is a very easy one, sure. Engineering is a very easy one, sure. But also if you have, like any sort of strategy slash like positioning strategy, so I guess where I'm going is if you can portray like you have a strategic mindset to know how things work, and when they put together how things work, that's also very transferable. What is not a transferable skill is project management. Like project management is, I know back in the 90s or something, like there used to be like MBA in project management. That's not the case anymore. Everything is project management in a way. So thinking about it from that perspective, those could be transferable skills. And again, sometimes the leap is longer for some roles than others, but it's definitely not impossible if you can communicate the fact that you've done things that can easily be applied to a product marketing role as such. Does that help?
Yes. Thank you so much for your input. It does.
Sure. Oh, sorry, Kunal, I don't think I can hear you if you're speaking.
Bryan.
Yes.
So
Hi, Beatrice.
Hi, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I have one question. So we all know that Microsoft, big tech, hard to get in, and a lot of people, are trying very hard to get into the company. So as far as you know or understand, and for the benefit of all of us, what do you think, of course, besides the technical skills that's associated with a job, what soft skills and in general that Microsoft really values in candidates that they feel, oh, when they see this candidate, immediately, regardless of what they can do in terms of technical side or the job related kind of stuff, that they would say, oh, wow, this is the person, that fits our culture, that fits the overall strategies, that fits the whole value of the company?
That's a good question, Beatrice. So if I can put it all on one, I would say leadership skills. If you portray good leadership skills, what you're saying is that I can lead, but I can also learn. And if you can learn, you can be taught anything, and you can do any. To Raj's earlier question about transferable skills, it'll be super easy for you to learn. So yeah, sure. So being able to portray strong leadership skills is, I would say, the number one soft skill that we look for. Sometimes if you have the technical skills, but you don't show leadership, like that itself can ding you, you know? And leadership also has like many definitions to it, right? Like I'm not saying you need to be arrogant, cocky, and things like that, but I'm saying like, you know, you need to show that you can not only lead like people, but you can create followership, because leadership means influence. Leadership means learning, as I said. Leadership means humility, you know, so we talk about the growth mindset quite a bit. So that's also super important. Um, and yeah, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it's something that it's one of the hardest things to evaluate a candidate on. So we do a lot of like behavioral questions and case questions and whatnot. But if you can show that strongly, that's great. And I'm not saying that you need to show that you've been a leader, like had leadership titles. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you need to show like strong leadership mentality of a leader. And you know, there is no. I don't think there's this thing where it's like, oh, one company is harder to get in than others. I think that's more like a business school thing, where I think business schools like to pride themselves on, oh, you know, we have a 2% admission rate and all that. Like, for some reason, like that's a big thing and stuff. But I don't think companies think like that. I'm for sure like Microsoft does not think like that. We don't think about like, oh, we like to be a hard place to get in. No, I think what we say is, you know, we want to be a place where people find their best self and they can do what they enjoy doing, and we create a platform for them. Like that's one of the biggest things I love about working in this company, frankly speaking, that you know, it's less about like, oh, you know, come here and make us and help us be awesome. No, it's more like, hey, come here and be awesome, you know. Like there's an immense amount of focus on professional development, personal development. People care about each other. That's what makes it a very hard company to leave, actually, because your expectations are very high. So don't ever feel like, oh, it's a hard place to get in. Like, no, what you need to really, you know, going back to my initial topic about finding the right function, the right industry, the right space, the right network, the right team, it all, like, that is what makes it difficult to get in, because you need to make sure all those things align for you. You know, just I think a year and a half ago, one of my friends, he was looking for a job. He was coming from a totally like different startup. He wanted to get into supply chain. He was in supply chain and he wanted to get back into supply chain, but totally different start, totally different industry. He in the startup, he wasn't doing supply chain. He did supply chain many years before that in Boeing. And he was like, yeah, you know, I want to get back into this, into supply chain. How do I get into Microsoft? I'm like, you know, I don't know. Like, you know, I'll refer you. I'll drop your resume to the hiring manager, and we'll go from there. He got the job within a month, like interviews and everything, because he in his interviews he showed leadership skills. Even though he wasn't working in supply chain in his recent experience, he showed that he wasn't too far from it. He showed a passion for it. He networked through me. I'm not saying me because I'm special. I'm just saying he networked through someone in Microsoft, and he did the right research, and you know, he found the right hiring manager too. By the way, it's not all on the candidate to make yourself successful. Like finding the right manager, work ethic, work style that fits for you is super important too. So all that you find out through networking, but I'm trying to dispel this myth that, you know, companies like to be known as it's hard to get into. That's not the case. You really have to find something that works for you and find a culture that works for you. So, yeah, does that help? Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Bryan.
Sure.
Fantastic. So we have a couple of questions in the chat. To go back to Kunal, he has, can you describe a typical day in your role? And then Terrence has, what was a challenging project or problem that you've worked at Microsoft on, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, to answer Kunal's question first. So a typical day in my role, so at any given point of time, I'm like juggling different products, different product launches. Sorry, I have one product, but different product launches. And each time, each release is kind of like in a different phase. And you can think of a phase like all the way from ideation down to implementation. And implementation looks like, oh, we are launching the social campaign and we have the right metrics set up and now we're going to wait and see how it does. Ideation is like, I'm sitting with my product manager and we're thinking, is this what we should be building right now or no? And why? And I have to bring information in about what customers are looking for and whatnot. But the start of my day is typically like just taking a look at the meetings I have and seeing if they align. I usually do that at the end of the prior day, so I know what's coming up the next day if I need to do something different. I will say I fight fires 30% of the time, and a typical fire could be like, a deadline for a strategy presentation to the LT to get a go, no go on a specific product launch is moved up. So it's like, oh, okay, now we need to do something there. Or we got feedback from the leadership team that, they weren't happy with the channel we were using to launch a product because it's hypothetically conflicting with another product in Azure. Then, I need to go and fix that. But if everything, like the happy path of my day is usually, doing a pulse check on all my projects in terms of the phases they are in, following up with the people I need to follow up with if there's something that is pending on someone else, and then trying to understand, if the right customers are actually getting involved with our products as well, because it's super important that we don't get lost in a lot of the work that we do, but we also get that customer interaction. So I like to make sure that any given week I'm speaking to a few customers and see how things are going as well. And at Microsoft we call it the one feedback loop, which is like you start you learn about the different phases of your product, and then you bring that information back to other people in those phases, so that everyone is aligned on what's going on and how things are working, and so that no one should feel disconnected. Typical fires also sometimes when I'm like, engineering has built something and I'm like, we don't have a plan for that, so we now need to go build it, or we need to cancel it or something. So it really depends on that. So my day usually follows like the product life cycle. Depending on the products I'm working on or the product launches I'm working on, depending on the phase of the product that I'm in, as well as keeping an eye on like the next year, seeing that, okay, if I'm doing these things now, what would be the positioning and like the STP, STP is a segmentation, targeting, positioning of the product, and how would that fare next year if I did that this year? So you're constantly trying to like, guess the future too. Because in product marketing, a lot of the things and a lot of the positioning you do today actually has repercussions in the years to come, because you cannot keep changing the strategy of your product, right? So you need to make sure that aligns, and you also need to make sure whatever you're saying aligns with what product engineering is doing. Sorry, so that's what a typical day would look like. If it sounds vague, that's intentional because that's how vague it is. But my goals are very specific. I have to make it a successful business. I have a number in my mind that I want my product to hit. I have a number in my mind I want in terms of number of customers I want my product to have. So everything else can be vague, but I have very specific targeted goals that I need to hit for my product. The other question, I forget the name, is around like what was a tough product. So in my prior, so I'm a product marketing manager now here, but in my prior PMM role, I was a product marketing manager for Microsoft 365. That is when we launched a brand new offering that Microsoft has ever done, where we bundled Windows, Office, and Enterprise Mobility Suite together. And the notion behind it was that if you buy Windows, you typically buy Office. If you buy Office, you typically are running Windows, even though you're probably running a Mac too. But the idea is that there was an opportunity for us to really have combined value for our customers and deliver it that way, instead of them having to buy three things three times, So what we did, so the reason why it was a hugely challenging product is because there were three different business models. So as a product marketing manager, one of the things you have to be really clear on is your monetization and your business model. And at Microsoft, we have like a team dedicated to that as well in terms of pricing. But typically, you need to know like what are you monetizing, which value you're monetizing, and why, and conveying that message to your customer segments. And that was a difficult product because Windows has a very different STP. Office has a very different STP, and Enterprise Mobility Suite had a very different STP. So now we're combining three of these like motherships together to form one large mothership, but simplify it enough so it as actually the sum of the parts should be smaller than the whole. That was the challenge. So it was super challenging, but we launched it. It went well. It's actually doing quite well right now. The reason why it was a challenge, because not only like you're dealing with multiple stakeholders, but you're dealing with like multi-billion-dollar products. You don't want to mess anything up, so being able to pressure test every single aspect of the product, every single message, every single positioning, every single customer value pillar, every single partner value pillar, figure out if the pricing is too expensive, if people might think that if I just buy it separately, it's cheaper, or if I buy it separately, I can get better support per product versus buying it together and having one support experience. Like it's the numerous things you have to think about. So it was hard that way, but it was also a lot of fun because I just like solving big problems. That's why I found myself in Azure Data and AI, because I'm like, let me go find a place where Microsoft is not doing something in a number one kind of perspective. So we're like a close second to AWS. So that's why I'm here. But yeah, that was a big challenge that spanned over a year and a half, close to 2 years. But it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Okay, we do have 7 minutes left, but we also have 2 more questions in the chat. So I'm gonna say that those are our last questions for the rest of this, unfortunately. So we have from Luciano, I have seen Microsoft has done some social impact with such as Teals. Can you describe how this has helped Microsoft branding and those target customers? And Tanisha, or I'm sorry, Tanisha, I think I said that right. I'm so sorry. How did you know what function and industry you were passionate about and wanted to work in after you graduated from Thunderbird?
Yeah, it's a good question. So to Luciano's question, first of all, like at Microsoft, and I know this might sound very cliched, but we don't do social things for the sake of PR. We really don't. Almost to the point where sometimes I, as a product marketing manager, I see like, we've done something and I'm like, hey, can I use it for my product launch? And they're like, nope, we can't. Like I get a strong no from PR. So, we really take, and this is again, what needs to show up in your interviews, right? We really take pride in being able to support our communities and support our social causes and whatnot, to the extent where we sometimes overdo it, and that's fine. So the Teals program is one example, but a very real way that we just recently launched. I don't know if you guys are aware of what we call now responsible ML, but it's a new like brand or campaign that we've launched for our Azure AI services, where we have shown how users of AI can use machine learning responsibly. So it involves like understanding ML, controlling ML, and securing ML. I think, if I remember correctly, those are 3 pillars. So, we bring a lot of our social initiatives into our product wherever possible. So, and responsible ML is one of those examples. But again, we don't try to boil the ocean as well. We have a very cool Microsoft Philanthropies team that have very specific focus areas, investment areas that we like to drive. But the end goal for that is really just it, which is to drive impact, drive social impact with the blessings that we receive from the community as well. So it's super important to, it's kind of like it's a when asked, like we share, here's what we do, but we just like to drive that, and if it has anything to do with ethics or accountability, or accessibility even, which is a big focus area for us. We thread that into our products like front and center. So yeah, that's that. With regards to Tanisha's question, so it's interesting. The reason I smirked a little bit is because when I graduated from Thunderbird, I wanted to become a consultant. And I'm like, oh, I want to be a consultant. I want to be like this jet setter consultant. And I did consulting for a year and I hated it. But what I did do was I did use consulting as a way to try new projects in different areas. So I was again blessed with working at a really cool consulting firm. Loved them to death. That was based here in Seattle. And I was given the opportunity as a senior consultant to really pick my projects and go find and do cool new things. And so I really enjoyed my work. But the thing I hated about consulting was that I could not follow through with it. I could not own it end to end. I had to always build the solution or build the proposal and present it, and that's it. I would not know whether it be done or not. So I learned something really interesting about myself in that, which is I like end-to-end ownership. I like accountability. I like driving something from strategy to execution. And that's the reason why once I said like, okay, that's something I like, let me go find it. And so I networked my way into Microsoft, and I started off as a product manager in our strategy and operations team, where we built the first and only e-commerce platform at Microsoft that brought all our business models, all our products together. So today, when you go on Microsoft.com, or you would have gone to the store and bought something, everything is based on that e-commerce, on an e-commerce platform that has a single Microsoft experience. Versus back in the day, if you bought Xbox, you would get a Xbox invoice. You bought Windows, you get a Windows invoice. So for me, being able to go from ideation all the way to execution was super important, and I didn't get that in consulting. But that then helped me understand what is it that I wanted to get into as a function. And so I felt blessed. I keep using the word blessing because it is a blessing. Like, there are miracles that happened, which brought me to the right place with the right people. People are super important. Mentors are super important. Champion sponsors are super important, which is why I say networking is super important. Right place, right people, and the right needs kind of came all together, and my interest kind of just gelled in, and it all came together. So just don't discount that. I mean, again, and I'm not saying go look for perfection. If you look for perfection, you'll probably never find a job. But find just enough of what you need to know that that's something that really will excite me and motivate me to get up most days, not all days, most days, and feel like I'm enjoying what I'm doing. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.